Welcome to my video about restringing. This is for nylon strung classical guitar, not for steel strings or bronze strings. Little disclaimer here. This is just a request that I've had from students or ex-students about how I restring my guitar, so it's just to help you out. Please read the disclaimer at the end as well. Here's some tools that I use before I get the job going. A pair of scissors, snips, wiring pliers. A winder is useful but not necessary, and although you see 2 packets of strings there, it's because I was going to restring 2 different guitars, but I was going to focus on one of them. I'm using extra hard tension strings, but you'll probably be using normal tension strings. Here's the winder. If you're using a winder I just use it for loosening the strings, not for tightening them up. Make sure that your winder is for a classical guitar because the tuning pegs are different sizes. If acoustic guitars and electric guitars have a different winder on them. So here I am just removing string 6. String 6 is almost, I think, all in real speed. The wiring pliers are very useful for just getting a hold of the string. I knot my strings, but be careful you never knot steel or bronze strings. These type of strings on the bass on a classical might look like bronze or steel strings, but they actually have a very soft nylon filament core to them. It's only the winding that is a metallic winding. So they're not going to kink the same way as steel or bronze. Now here I just push the string through once I've loosened it. String 6 is fairly firm, so you can just push from the string end and you see the loop coming out. And you just take a hold of the loop and pull it through. You can see that I lace all my strings in together. So this is basically why I'm making the video, just to show people how I do this. And the reason for it is to prevent any rattling or buzzing coming from the loose ends of the strings. Now here I'm just showing you the type of strings I'm going to be using today to restring this guitar. You'll notice I've removed the audio from the original. There was a slight problem, so that's why I'm doing this voiceover. Just make sure when you're taking to cut the packet open that there's no string inside that can be damaged. So push the string down a little bit. Make sure you don't want to be spending money on a set of strings and then damaging them before you've even got them out the packet. So they're clearly marked which one's which. So this is string number 6, the low E string. Just take a little bit of care when you're unraveling it. You don't want to put any kinks in it. That goes for steel strings as well. If you're doing steel strings, just be careful you don't kink the string. And also, once you've unraveled it, you want to remove the tab there. And then it's a good idea just to run it through your fingers and just to straighten the string out a little bit. It's been wrapped up in a coil. So I do this with all my strings, steel strings or nylon strings. Just helps to straighten them out, take out any little bends in them. You might find that the ends are not identical, so I tend to put the flexible end through the bridge. Sometimes one end has a stiffer coating. If the string is, if you've got quite a high saddle, then use your wiring pliers just to lift it over the saddle. That's all I'm doing there. All the saddles I've ever had in all my guitars, I've always made them myself, carved them out of bone. So now every guitar is different, so sometimes the hole in the roller can be offset. This guitar, they're more or less in the center there. So I feed it through, and then what I'm going to do is just tie a half hitch knot in it. As a reminder, don't do this with steel or nylon, steel strings or bronze strings. But for nylon strings, safe enough. This helps to just give it a bit of grip on the roller. Stop it slipping. So I push the loose end around the back there, turn the peg so that the vibrating end of the string will come off the roller tangential to the roller. No need to be too fussy at this point. You'll notice that when I come back to this, I'm going to tighten it in a moment, but the loose end of the string is going to be nearest the center of the headstock to allow the string 6 to be in line to the bridge. And I'm about to tie on the string. So push the string underneath, leaving a loop. Now for the bass strings, I'm going to go through the loop, certainly for this string, probably only twice. There's a very narrow bridge, this guitar, as you can see. So that's through once. And I take it up and through once again. Just to try and tidy the knot up. Sorry it's a bit obscure there, but this is just going through twice. Just tidying the knot up a little bit, and eventually that's going to be laced in by the next string. So I go back up to the headstock now, and I start tightening this up. And what I'm doing is making sure that the tail end of the string is near the center of the headstock. This is simply just to keep the strings in alignment so that they're not no severe angles. So I have the string lying next to the knot, and the tail end I push through. And then I tune string 6 up to string 5. There's no audio on this, so what I'm using is my usual method of using artificial harmonics. An artificial harmonic on string 6 at fret 5 will be an E, which is the same as the artificial harmonic on string 5 fret 7, which is also E. So I'm simply tuning string 6 up to pitch. You can use a tuning meter or a tuning fork, and just feeding the loose tail there through the gap. So I'm getting my reference note there from string 5, tuning string 6 to it. Again, no need to be too fussy. We'll tidy up all the loose ends literally later. And there's me just demonstrating the usual fret method, stopping the string at fret 5 to produce an A, so it sounds the same as the A string, which is already in tune. So onwards we go, onto the next string. Same as before. I've speeded the video up in places just to save a little bit of time. So undoing the original knot with the pliers there, just take it through. Just pushing the string from the neck end just to get the loop and just pull the string through. So we've now removed 2 strings and we've got 1 new string on. Now about to put string 5 on, the A string. So as before, I'm just running the string through my fingers just to straighten out any kinks. Pop it in from the bridge end. Again, just help it over the saddle. Going to tie it loosely on the roller. I'm just showing you that if it's not on the stand, sometimes just hold the guitar like this between my knees. Simple half hitch. Just popping the tail of the string through the back as I turn the peg. Well, remember to turn your peg in the correct direction, of course. Otherwise your string will end up underneath the roller, which you don't want. So back to the bridge end, and this time what we're going to do, or what I'm going to do, is lace in string 6 inside string 5. So I get those loose strings, the old strings, out of the way, and I'm going to have string 6, the tail of string 6 inside string 5. So I go underneath the string once, push it back, and there's a loop. Take the loose end and put it through the loop. That's once, twice. Now this time string 5 isn't quite as thick as string 6, so I'm going to go through a third time. Most classical guitars will have a wider bridge than this guitar. This is my old Japanese Simar. So three windings I have now, and string 6 is being held in place. Again, this is just the way I do it. Everybody else will have their own methods. So now I'll go back to the headstock, and this time the loose tail is going to be nearest the edge of the headstock, so that string 5, the vibrating side of the string, as it were, will be nearer the center. And again, I'm just taking the string so it's near the knot. Every little bit of friction and roller space helps. So the loose end of the string is nearer the edge of the headstock, and string 5 is on the side of the knot, which is nearest the center of the headstock. And again, I'm tuning string 5 to string 4. String 4, of course, was already in tune. And I'm just using the fret method there, or the artificial harmonics method, just to bring string 5 up to pitch. And now winding down the D string at super fast speed there. Let's slow it down so you can see it. So sometimes I put a double knot on my 4th string. A lot of it just depends on the mood I'm in, but instead of a single twist, string 4 is a good deal narrower than the other bass strings. So occasionally I'll put in a double twist there, or a double knot. And as before, just feed through string 4. I suppose this entire video, as far as putting the knots on the strings, could be shown just with one string, but then you wouldn't really get the idea of how well lace the strings on at the bridge end. So I'm just doing it almost in real time. there was a little bit of a mistake on the video which I've had to correct, and those that have very sharp eyes might be able to see it. So this is the fourth string, the D string, just unwrapping it, taking the label off, running it through my fingers so it takes out any little bumps or curves in the string or any kinks. You'll never get it completely straight, but you can see there that that's an improvement to what it was if you didn't do that. So flexible end there. Now going through the bridge, I'm just showing you, this is the fourth string. And strings 5 and 6 are going to be wrapped up inside that string. Just holding guitar in place. So string 4, the D string through the hole, and enough length there to tie a knot. Now, looks like the mood I'm in says I'm going to do a single twist in that one, a single knot. And just take through the slack by pulling it from the other side as you wind the peg. And you want this string to be tangential from the roller, so the knot is around the other side. Here I'm just tidying up a little bit. I don't want to get a loose end of another string tangled. You just have to be patient when you're doing this for the first time. And the important thing is, don't do anything you can't undo. So there, strings 5 and 6 are now being wrapped up by string 4. I put the loose tail of the string underneath what will be the vibrating end, push it back. Again, there's my loop, and it's going to go through the loop once. That's still once. I had to cut the film there. Twice. And a third time. Just as a reminder, you probably won't manage to do 3 loops with string 6, probably just 2. Now I've moved on to removing string 3. For the treble strings, I always put a double twist in them, a double knot. So the wiring pliers do come in handy there just for getting a hold of the knot and loosening it. So that's the old string 3 coming off now, just push it through. Now once, in a moment or two, once this string's gone, then there is a problem when I put this next string on, I remember, in that the length, there's been, I don't know if it was a bad batch, but I had several packets of strings that the third string was really much shorter than they used to be. So as with most things these days, probably a computer counts the number of windings as it comes off and cuts it before it gets packaged. But yeah, here's the third string. I think we'll discover in time that it's going to be a little bit short. This can be a bit fiddly to work with. I still run it through my fingers like this, but unlike the wire wound strings. They're a bit more springy, so how much benefit there is in running it through your fingers, I'm not sure. But now we're halfway there. We've got 3, the bass strings are on. Now we've just got to get the 3rd string on, the start of the treble strings. Just helping it through there. Back up to the headstock we go. And this time 2 twists. Once, I pull it tight a little bit, not too much, leave a little loop because I'm going to put it through again. And if you tighten it too much, then it's too difficult to put through. And if you leave too big a loop, then the friction you'll end up with a big loop around the roller without it being tight. So here I'm just taking a hold of it, and I'm not going to use much force here because I don't want to damage my guitar, but I'm just tightening it up. That's all I'm doing. So I wasn't using hardly any force. It was just to hold the string. Now I want string 3 to the vibrating end of the string, as it were, to be nearest the middle of the headstock, and the loose tail will be at the side. But anyway, we'll come to that. Down back to the bridge end, and we're going to lace in the 3 bass strings now inside string 3. And this is a slightly problematic string because, as I said previously, the lengths of the strings for string 3 have been getting shorter and shorter. So it was a bit of a struggle here. I got away with it. So through once, and you can tell that I'm trying to keep things as tight as possible here because of the length of the string. And at this point, it's probably a good thing that I stripped the audio off the original. Sometimes you have to hold the loose ends to keep them out of the way. So sometimes one hand will do 2 jobs here, and so you have to take my word for it that that was a little bit on the tricky side. I go back up to the headstock. Now the loose tail is going to be nearest the edge of the headstock, and this is to try and keep all your strings so that there's no severe angles before they go to the nut. You don't want to have severe angles. So we keep them as much in alignment as we can. And there's me tuning string 3 to string 2. String 2 is already in tune, it's the old string, and string 3 is the new string. So I'm just bringing it up to pitch. Now I'm getting rid of string 2. And by the way, those of you who have spotted the error in the video, if you've got very good observational skills, you can probably make out here that string 4 is loose. So yes, apologies for that. Anyway, this is the old string 2 coming off. Pushing it through, sometimes just take a hold of the knot. Guitarist's right hand nails is quite useful for getting a hold of the knot. Taking the old string through, and he's gone. So 4 down, 2 to go. You can see how short the third string is there, very, very short. I was lucky to get away with that. At some point I might actually get in touch with Didario and find out if this is for a reason. I'm not quite sure why the third strings are short in the packets I've had. Now, the particular set I had had 2 third strings. One was a composite string. So I was just making sure I didn't put on 2 third strings. Some people like the composite strings. I tend to get a little bit of a squeak off of them, so the composite string is a coffee coloured third string, slightly different material to the clear one. I suppose it does for a spare in case something breaks. So not too important here, but the previous 4 strings are going to lie inside the second string when we come back to it. So up to the headstock we go. Now I'm going to put on the second string, the B string. Through he goes. And a little half hitch. And again, it's going to be a double. I'm sure these knots have got special names, but you'd have to look up a book on knots to get the names for them, I'm afraid. So that's the second twist, like a half hitch with 2 twists. Going in, just tightening it up a little bit. And for this one, the vibrating end of the string is also going to be nearest the middle of the headstock, just to try and keep them in alignment, no severe angles as it goes on to the nut. Anyway, back to the bridge, and we're now going to lace in the 4 new strings inside the B string, inside our second string. I'm just keeping them, pulling the loose ones tight so that you don't get bulges. So underneath the string I go, make a loop, and then from the side nearest me, I go through the loop once, then through again, and then once more. I think I do all this intuitively. Nobody ever showed me how to put strings on a classical guitar. My original guitars were steel strung guitars, but I think I got all the idea from knots from my youth when I used to do a bit of fishing. So I had an intuitive idea how to put them on, and I've always done them like this for about 40 years. I think only once I ever had a problem, and it was when I first started. I just put a single twist in the treble strings, and one slipped off. So from that point on, I always did a double twist, and I haven't experienced any problems. So you can see that the loose tail is nearest the side of the headstock, and the vibrating part of the string, as it will be, is nearest the center of the headstock, just to keep the strings nice and, well, fairly straight. There's going to be a slight angle, but no severe angles. And now I'm tuning string 2 to string 1. String 1 is already in tune. String 1 is the old string, the last old string. So I'm just bringing string 2 up to pitch, just to get a little bit of tension on it. Making sure you always go back, so you don't want the loose tail to be trapped underneath. Some people do that, but I prefer the string to go on in a spiral and not have any bumps or kinks in it. So final string now, string 1, speeding the video up a little bit just to save time here. You can always freeze this and go in a little bit closer to have a look, I suppose. So just undoing the knot now for string 1. Sometimes if the string's been on a while, you know, the knot gets a little bit brittle, and so that's where the wiring pliers come in quite useful. So final string. This one's holding all the old strings. That's why it seems to be a bit of a tangle there, but these are just the old strings that were all laced in. So that's me getting rid of all the old ones. So 5 down, 1 to go. So they're all laced in nicely. And that last string to go on is string 1. So as before, feeding it in from the bridge. Up to the headstock, and I'm going to tie it on here, but it's not going to be tight because the string is still loose. This time, string 1, we want to be nearest the edge of the headstock, so the loose tail will be nearest the center. First things first, feed it through, get enough so you can tie a knot on. There should be absolutely no problem with string 1 because it's the final string. So that's once. Tightening it a little bit, leaving a gap so I can do a second twist or second knot. Those that have friends who are into sailing might be able to get the proper name for that knot, because I believe when you tie a half hitch around a capstan, it's got a special name. So that's like a half hitch with 2 twists. Now the loose end is going to be nearer the center of the headstock, simply to keep string 1 in alignment with the nut. The nut is the white thing there that you can see where the strings sit on. On the bridge, it's called the saddle. So back down to our bridge to tie them in. Final string. And all of those are going to be inside string 1. So just pushing them in so I don't have any bulges in the strings. So just holding the string down underneath the string. Take it back so it leaves a little loop, which I think you can see, and as before, through once. And then twice. And then a third time. And as you can see with the other strings that are visible there, they're going on like a spiral. You don't want a big lump with 3 windings in a knot, but in a spiral. So sometimes hold that down and go back to the headstock. The loose end is nearest the middle. Sorry about my hand obscuring your view there. I'm just showing you. Remember to place the string inside the slot in the nut. And here I'm just coaxing the string nearest to where the knot is. I don't want any gaps. Every little bit of friction helps there. And also it gives me room on the roller so that in the future when the string stretches a little bit, I've still got plenty of room on the roller to tune up. I don't want the string getting chewed up inside the roller. I've seen that happen in several guitars, students' guitars that come to me sometimes, and the string is right at the edge of the roller and it's actually getting chewed up inside. And that's guaranteed to snap or reduce the life of it. So all the strings are on in perfect spirals. They're all tied on. And again, a reminder, never do that with steel or bronze strings. Now that's them all on now. I've got a fair bit of tension. Ideally, you should leave this overnight so that the strings bed in, tune them again so that there's no slippage. But obviously it would be a very long video if I waited another 24 hours. So the strings are already stretched a little bit. I'm cutting off the loose tails so that there's nothing going to buzz. And there, what I'm doing is just pressing them down nice and flat. Everything is pointing away from me, so when I do play it, I'm not going to catch my wrist or the edge of my hand on any protruding strings. And now I'm just going to get rid of these tails because loose tails can rattle and buzz, and sometimes you might think you've got a faulty strut or the guitar is broken, and it's just a string just marginally just touching. Now, I would advise that you don't copy me in cutting them quite so short. I've been doing this for, as I said, about 40 years, and I know over the years I've learned how much to cut. So leave them a little bit long until you get used to it. You can always cut a bit more off, but if there was any slippage or you haven't put it on correctly, then it's going to be very difficult to put them back on the way they were. So I'm cutting them fairly short, but they're not going to touch the headstock anywhere, and they're not going to touch other strings. When you are turning the roller like this, I'm always doing it loosening the string and not tightening it up. You can tighten it up for the final tune-up. And there you can see I'm not happy with the length of that, just a wee bit too long, so just trimming a bit more off of it. And again, loosening the string if I want to get a hold of the tail, the loose tail at the back. The reason I do it from the back is, one, I'm not going to cut any of the other strings by mistake. And secondly, most of the rollers are nearer the back rather than the front. And I'm just, with my thumb, just coaxing it away from anywhere that it could touch against the headstock. I was just putting my thumb against that loose end so that I've got a hold of the loose end and it's not going to go anywhere that I didn't intend it to. So loosening this second string just to get a hold of the tail at the back, the loose tail. Now, yeah, don't copy me cutting it as short as that. But as I said, once you put your new strings on, then it's a good idea just to tune it up, even with all the tails the way they are, and just leave it overnight so it beds in before you cut the loose tails off. So that's the final one. a little bit of a loop there you can see on string 6. So what I do in that case is just I loosen it off a little bit and get my wiring pliers and just pull through the loose end. Anyway, I hope that's been of some value to you. And yes, here I am using an electronic tuner. I tend to use an electronic tuner most of the time just to get a reference note for string 6. And then I do my usual harmonic tuning. Perhaps sometime in the future I might do another short video just to show you the logic behind using the harmonic tuning and how I go about it. It means I can tune with one, I can do the harmonics and things with one hand and tune with the other. And remember to read my disclaimer that this is just to show you my method for putting on strings. There will probably be many other methods. Anyway, thank you very much for watching, and I hope that's been of some use to you.